When our troops launch a ground attack, one of the major obstacles which an enemy may put in our path will be a series of minefields. In World War II, minefields were used in the barren North African desert, the orchards and vineyards of Italy, the fertile farmlands of France and Germany, and more recently in Korea. If you discover that there is a minefield ahead of you, and if you have enough time, you carry out a deliberate and well-planned breaching operation. In the deliberate breach of a minefield, there are 4 steps: reconnaissance of the minefield, plans and preparation, breaching and the assault, and the passage of heavier support forces through the minefield. The deliberate breaching of a minefield is a major operation. Careful plans must be made before specially trained troops carry out the breaching operation. This means that you must learn all you can about the enemy minefield before you breach it. Reconnaissance patrols operating at night to prevent discovery penetrate the minefield to get first-hand information. A typical patrol is made up of an officer or an NCO and 6 men. The patrol carries mine detectors, probes, reels of minefield marking tape, mine markers, wire cutters, and compasses. Protective clothing is worn for added safety. The patrol is accompanied by a security element to the near side of the minefield, where it will be ready on call to protect the patrol. The patrol arrives at a previously selected spot, lays down a tape to mark the starting point, and penetrates the field. Number 1 man leads the way, first feeling for tripwires. Then he uses a mine detector to sweep a 3 to 5 foot path and listens for an indication of a mine. When he gets a positive signal, he uses a probe to pinpoint the mine. And places a marker on the spot. The number 2 man follows him closely, spikes down the tape to mark the patrol's path, and carefully uncovers the mines that have been marked by the lead man. He checks the mine closely to determine its type and size, and if possible, how it is fused. Different knots tied on the tape will show the type and location of the mines. 1 knot can mean an anti-tank mine, 2 knots an anti-personnel mine, and so on. Another method is to tie shipping tags to the tape and write the information on them. As number 1 and number 2 move along the lane, the officer in charge follows 25 paces behind. He checks the information on the tape or shipping tags and controls the patrol's operations. Other members of the party include numbers 3 and 4, who follow 25 paces behind the officer in charge, ready to provide immediate security for the patrol. Farther to the rear is the number 5 man, who is relief mine detector operator. He and number 1 relieve each other every 20 minutes. Number 6 remains in reserve at the edge of the minefield. Number 5 man now comes up to relieve number 1. The operator's ability to identify the detector tones decreases after 20 minutes of continuous sweeping. As he searches through the ground cover, he feels a taut tripwire. This is too dangerous to pass, so it must be investigated. Moving carefully, he follows the wire out to one end. He finds this end anchored to a stake. So he turns and goes back to check the other end. Here he finds the mine and cautiously disarms it. Cuts the tripwire and clears the wire from the patrol's path. If he encounters loose tripwires, he cuts them also and lays them clear of the path. The patrol continues to advance across the minefield, recording all mines which are discovered. If the number 2 man finds an unknown type of mine, the officer in charge comes up to handle it. He sends number 1 and number 2 back to a safe distance while he is checking the mine. Once he has noted its characteristics and disarmed it if possible, number 1 and number 2 men return and take the lead. When the patrol reaches its objective or has to withdraw because of enemy action, the men prepare to return with the information which they have gathered. The officer in charge leaves the minefield last, pulling out the spikes as he moves back along the tape. All mines which have been uncovered are recamouflaged and the markers are picked up. The officer in charge may bring back new types of mines if he feels capable of disarming and removing them safely. If it is necessary to maintain secrecy, the removal of mines should not be attempted. As soon as all members of the patrol are out of the field, the tape is pulled in. It will be carried back and the information sent to headquarters. At headquarters, this information is combined with intelligence from other sources, such as local inhabitants who may have seen the minefield being laid or have helped install it. Prisoners of war who have been in the area. Captured documents which may give the depth of the minefield and the number and types of mines. Trained observers in light aircraft or helicopters. And low-level aerial photographs. The commander considers the breaching devices at his disposal, such as hand breaching parties, explosives, and mechanical means. Then he decides how many lanes he will need through the minefield and orders preparation for the assault. When there is time, the assault will be rehearsed in a rear area, so each man will learn his job. When the time for the assault arrives, the breaching parties go ahead to make routes through the minefield so that the assault troops may pass through and establish bridgeheads. Artillery and mortar fire open the assault to neutralize the enemy's covering fire. A hand breaching party usually works at night and operates nearly the same as a reconnaissance patrol. It is made up of specially trained troops and uses the lanes opened by the reconnaissance patrols if these lanes have not been discovered by the enemy. But this time, a 3 to 5 foot lane is taped on both sides. Mines in the lane are either removed by hand, if this can be done safely, pulled out with a rope, or blown in place. In another lane, where the terrain is suitable, the initial breach is made by an explosive snake pushed by a tank. When it explodes, it clears a path several hundred feet long and wide enough for tanks. Bangalore torpedoes can be used to breach a minefield rapidly and make a path wide enough for troops. Another method is this heavy roller, which is used to clear a 16-foot path on roads running through the minefield. Another device used on roads running through minefields is the vehicle-mounted mine detector. This machine electrically sweeps the road and detects metallic mines. Mines located are then either blown in place with explosives, removed with long ropes, or taken out by hand. As soon as lanes are completed through the minefield, the assault troops go through single file with a safe distance between them to set up a bridgehead on the enemy side of the field. The next operation is to widen the lanes so that tanks and armored vehicles may press the assault. The breaching parties first widen the lanes to 8 yards for one-way vehicle traffic. This width is extended either to the right or left to 16 yards as soon as possible to handle two-way traffic. If you have time, you drive a sandbagged vehicle through the lane several times to check it. Then the lane boundaries are fenced and marked. Designated units maintain these traffic lanes. When the marking fences are completed, the original tapes are lifted and fastened to the top strand of wire. Hooded lights or luminous tapes are fastened at intervals along the lane boundary fence for guiding night traffic. To control assembly areas and traffic, military police are assigned. If a lane is closed because of enemy fire, the military police divert traffic to another route. An important need in a breaching operation is good communications. To be sure of a steady flow of information between the breaching parties and assault troops, at least 2 systems of communication are set up, such as radio and telephone. The assault forces have now breached the first minefield and the advance is underway. But our forces may run into a second minefield. When this happens, you try to find a way through the minefield in a hurry. The momentum of the attack must continue. Otherwise, the enemy will have time to reorganize and build up his defense. If no gaps through this minefield can be found, you must make a hasty breach of the field. Here you carry out the reconnaissance and breaching operations at the same time, and you make no attempt to keep them secret. To clear footpaths through the minefield, you may use hand-carried Bangalore torpedoes. For tank lanes, explosive snakes may be used. Artillery and mortar fire may be used to explode as many mines as possible. You can use hand probing, but mine detectors are of little use because of the many shell fragments. When the hasty breach is completed, the assault troops move into action. These lanes must immediately be widened and fenced so that combat vehicles can drive through to support the attack. These then are the stages of a breaching operation that you will want to remember. In a deliberate breach of a minefield, reconnaissance gives you the basic information you need about the size of the minefield and the number and types of mines. The next step is to make thorough plans and preparation, including rehearsals in a rear area if possible, so that every man will know his job. Then you are ready for the breaching operation and assault. Using whichever means is best for the job, hand breaching, mechanical devices, or explosives. As the assault troops move across to establish a bridgehead on the other side of the minefield, you widen the lanes for the passage of heavier support forces, such as tanks and other combat vehicles. If you run into an unexpected minefield, you make a hasty breach. Once the attack is started, the advance must be continued until you reach your objective.